Three, two, one, here we go. Rainman's Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey, everybody, it's the Rain Man. I want to introduce my guest, Al Kocourek. Al, how are you, sir?
I am just fine, and thank you very much for inviting me to talk with you today.
Well, thank you for joining me. So I wanted to have Al on. He's got a couple of things about Al that are of interest to me that I think probably would be of interest to a lot of people. And the first one is he's an expatriate. He lives in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. And we'll get into that obviously more. And he also runs a nonprofit organization that feeds the poor down in that city. And very interesting organization that's doing some great things down there. And so I thought I wanted to have Al on just to kind of give a little bit more insight into both living as an expatriate in Mexico and running a nonprofit organization in a foreign country. So Al, thanks very much for joining me. Why don't we start, just give us a little bit of background. How long have you been in San Miguel? What made you decide to move down there originally?
Well, I've been living here full time for 17 years. My wife and I bought a house on our first visit, which is known as the San Miguel syndrome. A lot of people do that same thing. I was living in Columbia, Maryland, which is a very nice place to live, actually. But I was doing photography all over the world. I had retired from the mortgage banking business in 1994. On my 51st birthday, and decided that I had enough of that stress and was looking for something else to do, and I love photography. So along the way, I got remarried, and my wife and I were looking for maybe a better place. Her asthma and such didn't do well with the Maryland climate. So we like to travel, and we were looking for to make a trip to Costa Rica. I couldn't put it together. I failed, and she said, why don't we just go someplace close by, like Mexico? And I saw this little town on the internet, and maybe it'd be the right thing to do. So we came down here in 2004, and that was it. I mean, we fell in love immediately. The house that we rented off the internet was a dump, but it didn't take away from the charm of the city. The city has changed a lot. When we came here, there was one stop sign and no traffic lights. Only in the last year or so have those things become commonplace. The town is about 150,000 municipality. About 80,000 of that live in the city itself, which is just a charming colonial town with the most perfect climate in the world. And it's been rated as such. It's just wonderful. But in the Campo, when you go, that's what it's called out in the country, you go 5 miles out and you are in some very, very poor areas. And poor is being generous. I mean, we're talking about no electricity, no water, no sewage. It is just a horrible, horrible existence for those people. And many years ago, I was talking to a local writer here, and I said, if we could get the great families of Mexico together, the 20 great families of this area together, we could make a real impact on those communities. And he looked at me and he started laughing. And he said, Al, those people are out there for over 200 years now on that same hard scrabble land because that's where the great families put them, and they want them to stay there.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of my personal view of Mexico, is that it's essentially a third world country. I mean, they do, and it's almost a failed state. And I mean, I can say that, and the reason why I'm saying that is just because of what's going on basically along the border region with the United States and Mexico, and the influence of the drug cartels along that whole border. And what's fascinating is, yeah, you go to San Miguel, and just might as well get this out right now. My in-laws live down there as well. And so what I definitely want to cover on this is they were there probably, I think, 8 or 9 years before you got there. So I'm sure they would say that things had probably changed pretty significantly by the time you got there. But I mean, it's really changed. And, now I think it's number one on the Condé Nast travel destinations and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you still have that just utter poverty just right outside the city walls.
It is amazing. And this has become, I mean, we used to have 1 or 2 good restaurants. We had 1 great hotel. Now the hotels are sprouting up all over the place. The restaurants are world class, and there's many of them now. And the world has found San Miguel. So it is a destination now. And so we see the traffic change. We see, crowds on the street, but my wife and I here can live a very nice life, without a lot of bother. And we can do the things that we want to do, such as feed the hungry. That's, that is the primary time consumer of my life, and really one of the great joys of my life. So
let's go ahead and jump into that. When did you take over? Because as I understand it, it was the program was pretty much in an abysmal state by the time you got there. So when did you take over, and what was it like before, and what did you have to do to bring it back?
Well, I have to back up a little bit more in that I was recruited at the local Episcopal church by some people who were very active in Feed the Hungry. And because I had a 4-wheel drive vehicle, they thought I was a perfect candidate to drive food out to these villages. And that was true, you need it. So I started doing that, and I did it for several years. And then I was the one who arranged all the drivers. You have to understand, Feed the Hungry works on a hub and spoke system. We have a warehouse, and then we have now 36 villages, communities that we deliver food to every week, or we did until we were shut down because of COVID. I'll get into that in a little bit, because that's where everything changed.
Yeah.
But
and those 36 villages, in what's the radius? Are we talking within a 2-hour drive with a lot of that?
Well, the longest one is close to 2 hours. Wow. The rest of them are usually about an hour. And all the food goes out to those communities with volunteer drivers using their own cars and their own gas and everything. So it's a wonderful example of volunteerism. And we also have food packers that are volunteers. We put together the menus and the stocks of food for each kitchen individually. It's really quite an enterprise. You would have to see it to believe it. But go ahead.
I wanted, and sorry to interrupt here, I wanted to just kind of focus in on kind of what you said earlier about, that's where the wealthy Mexican families wanted the poor people, was away, out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. Was the Feeding the Hungry San Miguel, was that started by an expatriate, or was that a program that was already in place by the Mexicans, or are they kind of like, hey, you're on your own, and they weren't going to do anything, and that's why the expatriates kind of felt the need to fill that void. Is that kind of how that worked out?
It started out as a food kitchen at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and they provided sandwiches for the vagrants and such that would be walking in the door asking for a handout. It gradually changed to where they decided that they could help kids in the schools that were hungry, and that has grown over. It's been more than 35 years now, 36 years since Feed the Hungry got started. I came into it almost as soon as I moved here, and the way that we've grown over the last 7 or 8 years has been just absolutely fabulous. Our budget typically was about $600,000 a year, so I had to raise $50,000 a month. Going to my rich Mexican friends, I found out that I could get nothing.
Really? And what was their response to you when you asked, hey, would you be interested in participating in this program?
No.
Really?
It's a cultural thing. The Mexican culture is family first, always family first. And then comes religion, and then comes the state, the government, what they're part of. But it's family first, and they keep things tight with the family. Going outside of there, we've tried over and over, and when different campaigns and such to find money in Mexico, and it just isn't here. Almost everything that we get comes from the quote gringos, either local or in the States, and also Canada. We work some wonderful people work with some wonderful people in Canada who help us out. So we were going along. Going back 10 years, the organization took on a new warehouse. It was structuring to expand, and basically it was the worst of all times. And just as they started expanding, the economy was hurt, and they got into debt, bad debt, and so. They needed help. My background was systems analysis, financial services, turning around problem companies and operations. And so when I was asked to come in on the board, it was just made to order. It was one of these things where, this is where I belonged.
Right.
And so in about a year, we had cleared up everything, by developing business plans, going out to people who had the wherewithal to help us. And we got some wonderful reactions. And all of a sudden, we're out of debt. We were more than $500,000 in debt at that time. So we were out of debt and able to start looking at what can we do to help people more. And so we changed our thrust a little bit from being just a send out food to being a nutrition provider. And what I mean by that is, we work in the communities, but primarily in the schools and in kindergartens and primaria schools. We set up our own kitchens. We pay for the kitchens and provide our own paid cooks to be there. And we bring them the food, and we have hot meals every day for all the children.
And did you have to build all that from scratch? I would assume none of those schools had that infrastructure.
Some of it was already there, but we've expanded it tremendously. But the kitchens, we have to build. Then they belong to the school system after they're there. But we build the kitchens because the school system won't.
Yeah.
They barely have pencils and paper. It's really a pretty basic education system here.
And kind of getting back to what we were just talking about there, did you get any support from the city of San Miguel, from the local government, or did they just say, hey, you're on your own, we're not going to handle it? And then the next question is, when that school, well, I guess that you build it so the school owns it, they have to maintain it. Do they maintain it? I mean, they must know that obviously this is benefiting their students.
Yes and no. We provide maintenance, but I mean, and in fact, our people, our paid cooks, they'll sweep it out, they'll clean it, we exterminate, we have someone who go out and hook up pipes and all that kind of stuff. So we're primarily maintaining it ourselves. And in some of these several kitchens, we actually provide 2 meals a day. When the kids, you have to realize that out there are no school buses. They don't even know what a school bus is. The children are sometimes walking miles to get to school. And actually what we found out early on was that about 25% of the children weren't going to school. And they don't do anything about it. I mean, that's the way it is. Because you're looking at really rural, super poor communities. And the kids are out in the fields, at an early age. So what we did by putting in a kitchen and providing the meals, the children came to school to eat. And when they came to school to eat, they learned.
Yeah.
And that's the real heart of the Feed the Hungry system. The children were learning and doing better. And if they can keep doing that, they can go further in school. Very few children here go into what we would call high school. It's rare. And then college is even rarer. And they charge for high school and they charge for college. So and these people don't have the money to do it. We'll talk a little bit about that later, because we do have some scholarship programs and things like that also. But our world changed with COVID. March of last year, they shut down the school system. So we have 30 cooks that are out of work, and not out of pay, but out of work, because we continued paying them.
Right.
Our staff in our warehouse, we continue to pay, but almost immediately, we were talking about, do we shut down everything? Do we do this? Do we do that? And all of a sudden, it came to me that we can't shut down. We have a warehouse full of food, right, and people out there are literally starving. We were getting word back from people in the communities that they don't know what COVID is. And of course, they're afraid of this new disease, but they damn sight know what poverty is and what starvation is. And all the jobs disappeared, and all they could think about was, I'm going to starve with my family.
Right.
And that is something that I couldn't live with. We had the ability to do a lot to help. We didn't know how much ability we had until we got into it. But virtually overnight, we started our Feed the Families program. And that said, the families that have children that we were already feeding, we will send them bags of food. Well, then we found out that there were other, the rest of the community,
right, they
needed to eat also. So almost from the beginning, we were sending out 2,000 bags of food a week. That's 5.6 tons of food every week we were sending out.
Let me stop you right there real quick.
Yeah.
Where's the food coming from? Just the farms in the area, or?
We buy it.
Okay.
Because, and we insist on quality. We changed our way of operating, from where we were providing nutritionally rich food for the children with all the vegetables, and we would have fish, and we would have chicken, and we would have sausage and all kinds of things in the children's food. But we knew right away that if we're going to try to feed all these people, we have to have anti-starvation food, I would call it. That meant heavy on protein, and let's keep them fed. We're not going to try to, keep up, this vitamin level and that vitamin level. We just can't do that much. So we went from about $35,000 to $40,000 a month in food costs to $130,000 a month in food costs immediately.
And you're able to raise that money?
Well, I mean, we've had some wonderful people donate to us, react to it. Now, we're sending out a bit less food now. So last year, in 9 months, we spent over about $1.1 million, and we raised $1 million. So we lost almost $100,000. We are very fortunate in that a few years ago, a good friend of mine and his partner, we were fortunate in that they passed away. And when they did, I mean, that sounds horrible, but when they did, they left us a charitable remainder trust, and it was over $1 million. And so all of a sudden, we were in a state where we expanded our network of kitchens, and we did a lot of good things, but we also maintained that buffer so that if we have a bad year, or if we're spending more money like this emergency, we have the money to take it out of our endowment. And the board supported me tremendously well. And we agreed that we would take up to $500,000 of losses before we re-examine what we're doing, because we don't have enough money flowing in, but we will have the expenses. We know that. And now it's down a little bit, but we're still at close to $1 million a year level, which is quite a surprise that we can operate.
Yeah,
but it's doing well, and we're supporting. We're literally feeding 20,000 people a day.
That's unbelievable.
Through this system.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
And there's, and because I know that in San Miguel, there's also, it's not huge, but it's a sizable middle class of Mexican families that
right.
work there. And so you got basically no help. They essentially said, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Exactly. But in past years, we have been getting grants from the state and from the school system to the tune of about 6 to 8% of our budget. So that was something. This year, they cut it out totally for us. And what they said was, you guys are doing a great job, and you're feeding all these people, but there's a lot of other NGOs who are not doing so well, and they're in danger of folding. And so we're going to send the money to them instead of you.
Unbelievable.
There is a twisted logic there, but that's what we're living with, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Now, out of curiosity, and I don't know this, is there any way to go to USAID or anything like that, like a U.S. governmental agency for funds, or is that they don't? I know most of this. Okay, yeah, most of this type of nonprofit volunteer type work is basically from citizens.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And I've talked on several occasions to people running food banks in the States and such, and what infuriates them is all the regulations that require them to throw away 25, 40% of all the food that they bring in. There's a lot of people in the States that don't have money to buy food, and the food banks are throwing it away because it doesn't meet a date requirement, or it didn't come from certain fields. And so that's a frustration across the board. We get some some donations of food when we're running our school kitchen programs. Somebody will come in with a truck of tomatoes and dump them in our warehouse. Fine, we have a big refrigeration system that we can hold on to things. And, you know, that's where we will get some donations from the Mexican community. There's a family here that owns a dairy farm. They give us 200 liters a week of milk. You know, that's all the kinds of things that, you know, that help us. But, you know, we also give back in the form, somebody gave us 1,300,000 face masks.
Wow. Yeah.
A US company in Mexico was manufacturing face masks, and they decided to stop doing it. And they asked us if we wanted them. So we're supplying all the other NGOs, the Red Cross, the city. The city has gotten, you know, about half of them from us, and they're putting them in the markets and in taxi cabs and buses. So we can do a lot of things. We are the 600-pound gorilla of the NGO business here. You know, we're just bigger than anybody else and can do more.
Yeah. And as you're saying this, and obviously this is going to be my politics coming out here, and that is a classic example of government just get out of the way. You're only making things worse. And so the fact that the Mexican government doesn't care allows people like you and that entrepreneurial go-getter spirit that defines Americans. Even though you're an expatriate, you're down there, you're still making it happen. And that's actually, I hate to say it, but it's such a damning statement against our government that they're forcing the groups up here in the States to operate in a way that it's actually hurting the people that are trying to help, vice helping them. Where you guys are down there dictating how things are going to go, and because you're successful businessmen in your past lives, you're able to do that with minimal government interference.
Now, we did get some help from the city on this COVID emergency in that they had to lay off a bunch of people. You know, there's no events. They had all these people there. So they loaned them to us to pack bags of food. You know, so we had at different times 3 or 4 people doing that were city employees. And they also loaned us 2 trucks for a while. They took them back now that things are building up again. But you have to realize that these villages are so often on trails. I mean, they're just a rut in the road, and conventional vehicles have a hard time. And when we're sending out several tons a day of food, I mean, a lot of tons, it's a matter of you know, our little trucks that we would normally get around, they couldn't handle it. So that was a big help to us when we were doing the most of our deliveries, you know, early on. And that's about all we get, you know, unfortunately. But we've had a lot of help from the American community. I mean, the U.S. community just have helped us. I was an avid bridge player for a while. We had a nice bridge club here. Those people last year, the members of the bridge club together, not as a organized group, but individual donors, you know, gave us about $100,000. You know, and these are just everyday people here that really, you know, are donors. Our volunteers that clean the vegetables and pack, you know, the packages that go out, they're some of our better donors. You know, not only do they feel like this is something that we want to do, but we also want to contribute to it to make it better.
Right.
So let me just tell you one more thing, though, that is amazing. And this was generally put together before I was in a board role. But every week we had people go out to inspect the kitchens and take inventory of what foods are there. They bring it back. We take that and feed it into the computers. as, as data, and we match it to the menus that we're going to send out the following week. Those menus then say that, there's, we're going to have 60 children in this particular school, and we're going to need so many pounds of beans, so much oil, so much of this, so much of that. And every kitchen gets a customized order of the food that they're going to need for the following week. There's no waste. And we also have a system that these are primarily, I failed to mention, these are primarily indigenous peoples. Like the American Indian, they're stuck.
Right.
And these people, different tribes, different communities, they have different food habits. They like different things and don't like different things. So we have several menus. We don't feed everybody the same thing. These children are getting meals that are customized to their villages.
That is unbelievable. So how many people do you have working this program? Well, it seems like a 24/7 operation.
Well, it isn't. We have a staff of 12 total.
That's amazing.
In the warehouse operation. And that includes three nutritionists and chefs that design the meals, because we want to make sure we don't just give them meals that taste good. We give them meals that are really nutritious. And, without the sugar, we will not even open a kitchen unless the community agrees not to have junk food sold as part of the school on the school grounds, and no Coca-Cola and that type of thing.
Wow.
In fact, we've been offered substantial subsidies from Coca-Cola
I bet you
if
have.
we would support their presence. And we said, no, that's just the opposite of what we're trying to do.
And what is their reaction? Because I've heard that before, that they're able to do that. And so you get into a middle school or a high school and there's vending machines of all that crap there. So what type of an offer was it? Was it like, this
it was like
an offer
$200,000 at a time. That was, this was several years ago.
Yeah.
At a time that they really needed it. But the people who were in charge of Feed the Hungry at the time said, hell no. That's not what we're here for.
Right. That's
so
amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And the children can eat as many times as they want. There's no problem with seconds or thirds. And one thing that happened, we opened a kitchen in a community way out in the middle of nowhere. And I was there, early on, watching, the kids go through the lines and everything, and also joining in with the food.
Right.
It's good food. And I noticed a kid come out and walk over to the side, and there was this little tiny little grandmother type or great grandmother kind of huddled there. And he came over and offered his tray to her. And then, I said, you could go in and get another tray. We don't count, how many times you eat. The only thing we ask is that if they take it, they eat it. Don't grab food and then throw it away.
Right. Right.
And these people are very thankful. I mean, they're good people, and it feels wonderful when you see, that kind of thing, and when you can see how they're improving themselves by just eating nutritious food.
Yeah. So you've been running this since 2004, you said, or 2005? So about 15 years?
I've been part of it, since I've been here, basically, 2004, 2005. But I haven't been president until about 7 years ago.
Gotcha. And so you've obviously, this organization obviously has had kids who have gone through school. Are there any kind of success stories of the kids that are healthy?
I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah. And it wasn't a planned question even.
No. I'm interested because you're obviously giving these kids a huge leg up from the rest of their little society that they live in.
One of our nutritionists was a Feed the Hungry child, and our head chef is a Feed the Hungry child.
Wow. Very cool.
And yeah, and they both went on to college. So, that's a big deal here.
Yeah.
And another thing that we've started, because children are not necessarily in very good shape when they come to us, in kindergarten. And we weigh, by the way, we weigh the children, we do check the heights, we look for obesity and malnutrition, and we find both because of the diet. They live on tortillas,
Yeah.
and there's not good food. So when we find problems, we have our nutritionists go and actually counsel with the mothers. And we decided that this was working so well that we needed to get to the children sooner. By the time they enter kindergarten, they're already in bad shape, and mentally they haven't developed the way they should because they don't have the diet that supports them. So now we've started a program. I mean, I don't know why, we just keep doing this stuff. Where we are feeding the newly weaned and their mothers. And we are giving them food and giving them recipes and giving them workshops on how to feed their children and the types of food and everything to try to get them started right at the baseline.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
And so we will have probably 2 or 3, we just started this program, and we will probably have 200 or 300 children doing this, or actually more than that by the end of the year. We'll have 10 villages on this system. That's amazing.
Is there any sense of animosity between the villages and maybe the ones that you can't get to or that are too far away and those, or are they just kind of out there islands? They don't interact with people? Because I'd be curious to know if other communities feel like they're being left out because you guys just can't handle it or you can't get to them. Is there anything like that in a particular instance?
We, in the last year or so, had cut off new kitchens because, see, one of the things you have to realize is that when we open a kitchen, it's forever. We're not going to feed kids for 5 years and then say, oh, sorry, kids, we don't have the money. We're out of it.
Right.
You're on your own now. So it's a big deal when we open a kitchen. It's an ongoing liability. We try to get sponsors. We call them kitchen angels. And it's anywhere from $5,000 a year to $25,000 a year to support a kitchen, depending on its size and how many meals a day we're serving. So we are pretty careful about opening new ones. But if somebody comes to us, and from time to time, the city has even come to us and said, these people are really in bad shape. And so, can you do something? And so we will open a kitchen if the local delegado asks us to, and if they promise, the no junk food type of thing.
Right.
And they give us a site to work with, where we can, if it's a unused classroom or something like that, that's perfect. Otherwise, we have been building kitchens and dining rooms. And I'll tell you a little side story here. There's a gentleman here in San Miguel. He's an architect. He's actually from Spain, but he came to the United States as a child, a very, very poor child. Joined the Marine Corps when he was 17. 6 months later, the Marines sent him to the U.S. Naval Academy.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, that's called smart.
Oh, yeah. I like the guy already. He's a Marine.
Yeah. He is a good friend. And the first time that I talked to him in any depth about what we were doing at Feed the Hungry, and I said, I'm hoping to build 5 kitchens this coming year. He says, I'll do them for you. I said, well, it depends on how much they're going to cost. And he says, no, I'll pay for them.
Wow.
He designed them, built them, and paid everything out of his own pocket. I mean,
Amazing.
when you run into somebody like that, it's almost a miracle.
Yeah.
Because he wants to give back, for all the benefits that he's gotten. And he's just a wonderful person. And we have other people who really want to help. And that's what makes it so special.
Yeah.
Going down the line.
So obviously you are running a first-rate operation. Have you had any groups from other parts of Mexico or even other parts of Central America come to you and say, listen, how do we do this? We want to start this in our own community?
Well, the thing that differentiates us is, number one, we're in a prosperous community for Mexico. Everything's more expensive here, but it's because of the gringos bringing in the money.
Right.
But we get support from the gringo community. The other part about it is the volunteerism. I mean, every week we have 36 drivers come through our building. They come in one door, get packed up, and drive out the other door to go out to their kitchens to deliver. Those drivers are critical to the operation.
Oh, yeah.
The expense of trying to distribute food otherwise would be unbearable. The other part about it is we have all these other volunteers, anywhere from 15 to 25 at a time, dressing the food and packing it and getting it ready to send out. So on Saturday mornings, the vegetables are all cleaned. We get just piles of vegetables. And on Monday morning, the chickens and the this, that, and the other are all packaged up, put into our refrigeration system. And then on Tuesday mornings, everything is brought out and put into the vehicles. Those people have made a tremendous difference. That was one of the changes that I made early on to try to keep from adding staff or closing kitchens when we were in financial problems.
Right.
So when other people come to me, I'll say, look, if you have the volunteer base, you can make this work, but it takes both money and volunteers. The two have to be together,
right,
in order to become an efficient system that is manageable for the long term. We're very solid financially, but I want us to be at least close to a break even every year. And I don't want to take on a lot more obligations until we, unless I know that we can cover them.
Yeah.
It's
So
just basic management.
and I would assume you probably by now have some kind of a waiting list of little communities that want to get into your system.
Yeah, from time to time, they crop up. And if we can do something, we will. And sometimes it's informal. I mean, like there's another group, for example, of NGO here in town that specializes on the elderly. They're called Some, so others may eat. Wonderful people. A Filipino couple organized it. I mean, they were close to 40 years ago. Now their daughter, who's a doctor, is running it. And they provide food for the very elderly people. You have to be at least 65, I think it is, to even get a meal from them. And
Right.
they go up into the 100 bracket. And they make food, and they have volunteers similar to ours that support them. At this point, they can't do the food kitchen for the elderly. We provide them with food. There's also neighborhood groups all over this area for different communities that there are pockets of people who don't have any food. We provide them also. So we know how to pack food, and we know how to do it, for nutrition. These people get bored of the same thing, but they're alive and they're healthy. And that's what I'm worried about more than anything else.
Yeah.
That they will be healthy. So, we're doing, and we also have another community of volunteers that not only do we do the kitchen there and such, it's called uh, Los Ricos, and they're not rich. uh, and we have a group of primarily Canadians, but some Americans with it, that go there and teach them English, because the jobs here in town, it's a tourist community, so they need to have English to get the better jobs in the hotels and in the restaurants and such. So we're teaching them English, and that group on their own provides scholarships to the brighter children. And they've had examples now of a couple lawyers have come out of that town, and other folks. They can tell who are the brightest,
Right?
and they make sure that they continue on to high school, and then the brightest of those will continue on to college. I mean, you can do a lot, if you have the diligence, and if you're willing to work hard enough, for nothing. No one makes anything in our organization other than the paid staff.
Yeah. And
those people have been working with us for, the director of food services, Olivia, has been with us for like 30 years. She came almost with the organization.
Wow. And
our finance director has been with us for almost 20 years. And so what we have is an organization that is run very efficiently, and we can do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And that's probably, that's almost our theme. What can we do? And if we have some money, we can expand. We can do it economically because we have somebody that'll give us a kitchen.
Right. Hey, real quick, this is actually probably a good time to throw it in there. Do you have a website where people, if they want to donate?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead and give it.
Website. And we have a nice newsletter too. We have all kinds of things to communicate, and all that's been over the last several years. But it's Feed the Hungry, SMA, San Miguel de Allende, .org.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful website. We have nothing to do with any religion or any politics. All we are looking to do is to help people, and that's it. I mean, we have we have a lot of years of success. The group that monitors charities, called Charity Navigator, they evaluate if this is a good place to put your money, is it going to get good use? They have given us a rating of 100 out of 100.
That's great. I love it.
We have a perfect rating with Charity Navigator, and we're just efficient and work well, and feed 20,000 people right now. It'll drop back. Normally we're feeding about 5,000 meals a day to the children, and that's somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500 children every day will get their meals with us. But now we have bigger numbers.
Yeah. And what I love about this and what frustrates me at the same time is, and again, I'm going to get a little bit political here, but throughout these last couple of years, it just seems like if you watch television, U.S. television, it seems like the United States is the worst place on the planet. That it's the worst. And there's no redeeming qualities to it. And then you get people like yourself, and I'm sure there's people like you all over the world that are doing this to their local communities or their new homes. And there's also, I'm sure, a ton of people doing it in the United States as well. And they just this type of charitable work and this type of stuff just flies completely in the face of how we are being projected as U.S. citizens, as Americans. And I love to hear it because, again, just get the government out of the way and we'll take care of each other.
Well, I don't believe, I'm non-political. I don't watch television.
Good, because I didn't mean to throw you into a
Yeah,
corner,
yeah.
so I apologize about
No,
that.
no, you're not. But I agree with you. The news that I get is all over the internet. And what I see is somebody's hair color changes. That's a big article, on these different news blogs. But somebody doing a great thing for their community, you never hear about.
Yeah.
It's what sells, readers or viewers or whatever. And it doesn't even have to be real.
Right.
I get so disgusted looking at that. My wife and I have decided we are off of any kind of TV. We just don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's smart. Save your sanity. Plus, you're doing enough good down there that your karma cup overflows. I'm sure. I mean, it's amazing that. And real quick, when you took over, obviously it was in debt, but it wasn't working as efficiently as it is now. And so, when you took over, were there as many people that were volunteering, or once you took over, once you started to right the ship, then people started to realize, hey, this is actually can work, and then the volunteers started coming in, or how'd that work out?
Well, we have a wonderful volunteer coordinator who has more friends than anybody in the world. And Jana is the kind of person that people go to because they like her and they know that she's real. We had a lot of volunteers then, but they weren't doing as many things as volunteers could be doing. And that was the big change, because we had too much staff. And we had to make cuts on the staff to get our numbers down. You can't lose $100,000 a year in an operation that was only bringing in $400,000 a year.
Right.
And I think we had 3 or 4 months of reserves at that point in time. It was really scary. So the first thing was, how do we get this in order? First thing that was done was we got rid of the executive director. We don't have an executive director. I function in that capacity, and we have a board of directors that are all, each one is responsible for an area of the company. So we have someone that's responsible for operations, someone that's for fundraising, someone for volunteers. And so we have no paid directors. In fact, we won't even allow our directors to file for expenses. If you want to take somebody out to lunch, that's up to you.
Right. That's part of the volunteer job.
And that was a matter of changing the mindset of the people in the organization. That before, when we were losing a lot of money, let's have our meeting at this restaurant. So all that got stopped.
It seemed like it was getting corrupted to the point where they were losing sight of the mission. Yeah,
they were losing their mission and how desperate things were.
Yeah.
So once we got that, we got the mindset right. And the first suggestion as far as saving money was we need to close kitchens. I said, wait a minute, what do you think we're here for? We're here to feed children. You don't close kitchens.
Right.
To save the money, you right-size the organization. Well, we've never laid anybody off. So, well, you're going to have to now. Yeah. Because that's the only way that we're going to get this thing back on, back in a sane manner. And so that's what we did. And we kept the same number of kitchens then. And since then, we've expanded enormously. And it's running better with the fewer number of people. That's what I did in business.
Yeah.
For many years.
So let me ask you this, because this is actually this is business school type stuff here. What do you do as a former successful businessman from the United States who's now running this nonprofit down in Mexico? What do you do so that you keep everybody targeted at the goal, which is to feed the kids. What are we talking, like an everyday thing, or is it just?
No. First of all, you have to realize that I benefit enormously from having, as a senior staff, be extremely capable. They don't need day-to-day supervision. If they did, I wouldn't be the person that would be giving it to them, because I don't speak Spanish at all. They know it and I know it, but we have other board members that do speak Spanish, and the people who deal directly with the staff are good Spanish speakers. My chief financial officer worked in Mexico virtually his entire business life for Citibank and such in Mexico City. I mean, the guy he's a genius, and he's a wonderful communicator. Our financial director is he's originally from Belgium, but he came over here from Malta, and he is a systems guy. He's the one that put together the system that for ordering, and he manages the inventory. The lady who runs our operations is a former school teacher, and she knows everyone in the school system. And when we need to do something, we need to get permission from the world. And that's one of my bigger problems, if you want to call it that, is that you can't get anything done quickly. If you have a great idea and you want to try to implement it, get in line, because nothing happens very quickly in the bureaucracy of Mexico. And so, but we have the people who know how to get things done, and they do it. And it doesn't take the day-to-day, in front of the staff. They know what they have to do, and they do it. I mean, it's a wonderful place to have, this organization.
Yeah. So you're coming up on 7-8 years as the president. What does the future hold for this for you? I mean, are you going to do this until they
I'm
come and get you?
77 years old right at this point. And at 77, I'm not looking at a long-term career. I was elected president for life, and I don't like that.
That usually has a negative. That usually has a negative connotation to it, but not in this sense. It seems like.
But I've told people recently that once I turn 80, don't expect to see me very often. That's I think I need to pull back about then. So, and I'm also, I was head of the local bridge club, and I was doing playing bridge 3-4 times a week. I'm doing my closest friend here passed away 3 years ago, and he asked me to. Well, he's alive. He asked me to be his executor. And I've been doing that for 3 years through a lot of legal problems and such. And so I'm probably one of the luckier people around as far as COVID is concerned, because I haven't had a bored moment the whole time. My wife has asthma pretty bad, and we made a deal that neither one of us would go anywhere, because she doesn't want me going out and bringing back something that will kill her real quick. So we've been pretty much quarantined for the last year. I do everything on the computer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always on the computer, and it works out pretty well. Every once in a while, we'll have to have a face-to-face meeting, and we do all our board meetings on Zoom, and it works. It doesn't feel the same. I don't like it, but it works, and that's what, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. And so, but I haven't been bored for a year now, with all the issues, particularly the getting out all these tons of food. I think the last time I looked, we had produced 11 million meals.
That's unbelievable.
Over the last year or so.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this little passant operation, hardly anybody works here.
That's you being humble. It's anything but that. I mean, that, especially in a third world country doing that. So besides providing food and building kitchens in these community schools, what else are you guys doing down there?
Well, one of the things that you have to remember is that these communities are really back almost to the Stone Age. There's almost no vehicles. There's very little in infrastructure. So water is probably one of the biggest problems that they have. One of the things that we don't want to do is produce really good food for the children with bad water. It doesn't work. These kids can get sick from the water. And in fact, that's one of the bigger problems in their homes. So one of the things that we do is we also check the water in every one of our 35 kitchens to make sure that it's not too bad to drink, because you're never going to get perfect water here unless you get bottled or whatever. And in some places, we literally bring in bottled water, for the school, for cooking the meals and such.
And was the water, was that a part of the original plan, or did that just kind of pop up? Really?
We keep evolving.
Yeah.
This is what you call mission creep.
Yeah. Well, and mission creep equals more funding requirements.
Exactly.
So go back to the waters.
We found that the levels of arsenic, heavy metal, arsenic, and fluoride are dangerous, literally, in some of these places. We have, out of the 35, we probably have 10 that it's really bad, and 5 that are literally dangerous to drink. And in those that are dangerous, we will work with the school, and we'll bring in water. But the children are still drinking this stuff at home.
Yeah.
This is why they drink so much Coca-Cola, because it's sweet, it tastes good, and it's and it's pure. It's not bad,
right,
for them. It'll rot their teeth rather than too much fluoride will rot their teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different way. I've seen babies in bassinets with a bottle in their mouth that has Coca-Cola in it.
Really?
Yeah, and the teeth come in rotten.
So no wonder why Coke wanted to get into the schools.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's fascinating.
But we produce we look for anything that is detrimental to the children, and it almost doesn't matter what it is. But we have to be careful. We can't go past what we can afford to do.
Right.
And that's really the bottom line. We will do whatever we can to help these families and their children up to the limits of our financial ability.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that could be a nonprofit in and of itself, and that is providing some kind of a well system to.
Well, there's another nonprofit here that does that, and we go to them to actually have our water tested.
Yeah.
And they have worked with us as a partner with water filters and with these catchment systems and such.
Is that run by an American as well, or is that another group? Yeah.
It's a mix. It's a mixed group, but it's because all the technical people here,
right,
with them are Mexican. The people who are out there trying to find the funding and the actually run the organization are all American.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
There's over 100 NGOs here in San Miguel.
Is there really?
Yeah, well over 100. I don't know how many will be here when the COVID ends, but it's incredible how many of them are here. And each one, one will do children's artwork. Someone else will do music. I mean, it's just all these different organizations.
Right.
And everything stopped. I mean, they really shut down the city when they, they needed to.
Yeah.
And they're not being hurt as bad as some of the cities in Mexico.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, that is some amazing stuff. The people in San Miguel, the local Mexican population in San Miguel sees this as a successful operation. Is there any change in the mindset of the more wealthy Mexican population? So
hell, you're
yeah,
feeding them. Why should I?
it really okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, our biggest thing, I spend more time trying to cultivate donors more than anything else. That's the hardest part, because we have gone from basically a $500,600,000 a year operation to $1.1 million, and we did it all at once. And it's in an economy that doesn't always produce donors with more income.
Right.
Some of our most faithful donors cut us back or cut us off this past year because they said, our foundation just doesn't have the money. And that's legitimate. And I'd say, fine, consider us when you're back, consider us, on your first list of donations. And so far, so good. We've had a couple amazing donors in the last year, and they've really made a difference.
Yeah.
And also, we have a new director of communications. This lady, Paula, lived in the States. She's Mexican, and she's also American. And my God, what energy. She's a wonderful, over the last couple of years, she put us, into doing GoFundMe. She's done all these different campaigns. I mean, we have guys running marathons for us. We have
that's great.
Of vineyards. We have it's almost a event of the day.
Yeah.
And we also, and probably the thing that I like the most is that we also sponsor 1 or 2 tours a year. And in these tours, we restrict it to like 22 people. And they're reasonable in cost, considering that they're getting luxury accommodations, all their meals, and events every single day for a week. And these tours bring in people that we wouldn't ordinarily see. And they're living it up. That we get incredible reviews from them. And we have some friends of Feed the Hungry that have estates here, haciendas, if you want to call it, who put them up, in these accommodations that are just way above normal.
So these tours, these are like people coming down from the States that you say, come on down, we're going to show you our operation. Is it specific to Feed the Hungry, or is it? Okay, gotcha.
That's the primary thing. We will show you a good time.
If you break out your wallet.
And in passing, we will give you a tour of our facilities, and we will take you out to show you what we're doing in these communities. So about 1 day of the week is devoted to that. And it's and actually that comes back with the highest ratings.
I'm sure.
Because we rate every part of every day with them, and that comes back very high. Yeah. That was something that they were just amazed about, and they're amazed at everything we're doing.
I love it. Well, this is blowing the old adage of the ugly American that goes someplace and ruins the place where they go. They turn into American. That's completely the opposite in this case. And it's funny that, well, not funny, but I remember when my father-in-law was alive down there, he was running just a small little group that was helping to get rid of the graffiti on the fountains. Because San Miguel, if you've not been there, San Miguel de Allende looks like you're in Spain. It's a 300-year-old Spanish colonial city, at least right around the centro, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And all these gorgeous old fountains, and he kind of helped them clean it up. And so
I know he did.
The expats would come down there and raise it up for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I would assume the local population is grateful for that. And obviously it's amazing what you're doing down there. I didn't realize it was as big as as what you were explaining.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I knew your in-laws, and I still know her.
Yeah. Yep.
Your mother-in-law. But Bob did that. It made a tremendous difference. Right outside my house, it used to be all graffiti on the wall that goes alongside. And now you hardly ever see any graffiti.
Yeah.
But what has happened recently, and since you've been here, they have embraced the graffiti. There are huge murals on walls all over the place. My veterinarian's office has all our walls covered with pictures of animals, big pictures of animals.
Right, right.
Almost every wall that has any size
Big murals.
now has murals on it that are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
The artwork is fantastic. And no one touches that with graffiti.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
In fact, there's even an overpass where the tunnel going through on both sides, it's solid, beautiful murals. So, Mexico has a history of murals, going back, over 100 years, 150 years. And that is being now brought back here with these anti-graffiti
Right.
murals.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's
It's still a great place to live. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And I haven't been down there several times. I mean, it is gorgeous. It really is a beautiful, beautiful spot. So, all right. That website again is
Feed the Hungry SMA.org.
Got it. Okay. And people can go there to check it out, to sign up for your newsletter, to donate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have donate buttons everywhere. And if there's any problem with that, I never go to it myself, but every kitchen is listed and, how to get there and all kinds of things. But if there's any problem, just hit Feed the Hungry SMA and, we're easy to find. And, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on everything. We've now embraced the electronic world. But
and you should.
And
it's only benefiting.
And we get very good feedback from it.
Yeah, I love it. Al, this was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation.
It's very seldom does anyone want to listen to me this long.
Well, I mean, this is what I find, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is, and I did not realize your organization was as impressive as it is, but it's just over the last few years, like we were kind of talking about, that it seems like America's getting a bum rap in the mainstream media. And it's frustrating because I know that there are people out there that are doing this. And, and my thought would be, as of right now, is, there's enough things in the United States that could be fixed where we could focus our energy. But if you've got the means and you want to expand your donation pool, there are some amazing things going on with groups like yours, just, in places that are in dire need of it. And like you said, you're completely non-everything. It's everybody's welcome.
We're pro-children.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yep.
Wow. Well, listen, I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me the forum.
Yeah, and next time I'm down there, we'll make sure we stop by.
Absolutely. Now we can do it because we just got our second shots.
Yeah, well, there you go. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Hey, I will finish this off by saying, like I always do, if you're in the military, the police departments, fire departments, or first responders, and even volunteers down in San Miguel, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. Al, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, it's the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, Observations of the World We Live In. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.